Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Friday, May 27th installment of the Silicon Insider, the only uncensored look at life and business in the Valley. My name is Mike Malone, and I'm here with special contributor Scott Budman, technology reporter for NBC Bay Area. Our producer is Jordan Henderson. Our East Coast correspondent is Bob Grove. And our host, as always, is the Silicon Valley Business Journal. Okay, Scott. I think we have breaking news this morning, so we might as well do that one first. Broadcom and VMware, right?
Yeah, VMware, which has been a target in the past. It's a very attractive software company for bigger companies based here in Silicon Valley. Broadcom, which has become this sort of Frankenstein monster of many, many software acquisitions, offering $61 billion. And it's interesting, as we talk, the deal just announced this morning. The stock price of VMware not yet recognizing the premium. It's about $10 billion.
We're recording this on Thursday morning because you're back in court again tomorrow.
Right. So as of Thursday morning, the deal announced. And I wonder if Wall Street is a little hesitant to jump, on the VMware wagon, just because it's Broadcom, which is so big that I think antitrust people will be looking at this deal pretty closely. Not that VMware is that gigantic, but $61 billion is one of the biggest deals. It would be one of the biggest deals in tech history, up there with Dell, up there. So I think, I think Microsoft
in software.
Right. Remember, Microsoft is buying Activision. I think that was $67 billion. I believe Dell had a $63 billion. And these are just staggeringly big figures. But I think it also bodes for what we're going to see, which are larger companies that are, trying to stay relevant and large, taking out the smaller companies that are flat out struggling in the current economy, which has been brutalizing tech stocks.
Well, recessions are great acquisition times, right?
Yes.
You can get things 50 cents on the dollar, 25 cents on the dollar. Is Broadcom being premature on this? I mean, could they have waited? I mean, looking at the stock market right now, they could have waited a few more weeks or months and gotten maybe a real bargain.
I mean, that really depends, because look at the last few weeks or months, stock prices have tumbled. How do we know that they're going to stay this low? You're right. They may get lower. This is sort of what Elon Musk has been going through with Twitter. You just can't time the market. If you want to take somebody out and you're already seeing discount prices, traditionally, historically, the successful companies have made their move, not necessarily because the price may go up again, but they've made their move before the competitors make the move. And that's what makes them successful.
Well, I mean, this thing had been rumored for a while. They must have had some serious last 11th hour negotiations.
Yeah. And I mean, given the government scrutiny that traditionally comes with a Broadcom deal, I imagine there's going to be a lot more paperwork flying around in the days ahead.
Well, that was the one piece of good news I had. I should also mention Jack Dorsey just stepped down from the board of Twitter. Boy, now that is a whole life cycle right there. I mean, he was the most noticed man on earth for about 2 months there. And now he's completely stepped away and Elon has filled the void. What do you think Dorsey does now?
He's still running
a lot of other stuff.
Yeah. I mean, let's not downplay the fact that he's still running Square, which has not been bought by a gigantic bank, as I once thought they would. And they may still, they're doing things way ahead of the traditional financial system, both in technology, but also in crypto. And I think that's going to be attractive to big banks. I mean, goodness, if the deal goes through of Musk buying Twitter, Jack Dorsey's sitting on yet another gigantic pile of money. He can do whatever he wants. And he's still a young man. I mean, there's a lot of potential for him to not just get into another company, but, maybe some philanthropic activities, maybe some, he's talked about his love for crypto and sort of dissecting that. So I don't think we've heard, and I hope we haven't heard the last of Jack Dorsey. I've interviewed him many times. He's a fascinating figure, complex, interesting, and I think there's more to come.
See, I think the Unabomber beard was a clue. I really do. I mean, one of my rules is when you see a grown man change their facial hair, what they really want to do is change their life.
Funny that you're not the first person that I've heard that from. That's interesting. I've heard that from a few people. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, and the pictures of him relaxing on that Caribbean island or whatever he was doing, that's a man that wants to get away. He wants to Robinson Crusoe his life for a while. So, okay, well, good luck to him. Let's talk about stocks. As you mentioned, stocks have been hurting. Nvidia, Nvidia is a pretty high flyer,
Right.
and they got hit this week because they had a weak guidance. Not even bad numbers, just weak guidance on an analyst call.
Yeah, the Nvidia story has been strong for so long, but like many high-flying companies, it's been pretty much cut in half stock price-wise over the last 6-7 months. But you're right. The forecast is what's doing Nvidia in and keeping it from going back to where it was, not so much the performance. And forecasting has got to be really, really tough right now. Look at all the clouds that are ahead. Even for a chip company, they're not necessarily dependent on Russian energy or the price of crypto or whatever. But Nvidia especially has become so built into AI and electric cars, and not to mention all the research that's being done with high-powered chips. They've really become a leader. They've overshadowed Intel and the others, and good for them. But then again, the bigger they come, the harder they fall. And they're still trading. I mean, what is their market value right now? It's, something like $400 billion. I mean, for Nvidia, that's an impressive number. They're no longer the sort of scrappy upstart. But yeah, it's tough out there. And they were also one of those companies that really benefited during the pandemic because everybody was upgrading their hardware.
The old notion that you got to put your eggs in more than one basket. I mean, you get out of the vertical world of business quickly as possible, get into I'm in multiple markets. The problem is during times like this, all the baskets are getting overturned. So, and also when you're the highest flyer, everyone expects you to be doing, hitting on all 8 cylinders, doing perfectly. So any sign of weakness of the number one company, they get pummeled.
Right. And that's why they tell you sell high, because sometimes when your stock price is really high, it doesn't deserve to be that high, no matter how strong.
No, it's getting that added delta there of good feelings that you're the winner.
Yes.
Yeah. Snap. Tell me about Snap. They got hammered.
Yeah, Snap had a rough beginning to the public markets, and people questioned whether they were a really strong social network that deserved to be publicly traded. Then they really, really turned things around and proved that, hey, they can generate ad revenue with the best of them. But now they're getting taken out to the woodshed and just beaten up because it's a social network. Their ad warning, they're now big enough, by the way, and respected enough where their revenue warning took down other social networks. So Snap now has a little bit of standing in the world. But like so many social networking companies, I mean, look what happened to Facebook's valuation, not to mention the weirdness around Twitter, which I think would be considerably lower if it weren't a takeover target. Snap right now could very well be a takeover target because it's suddenly very, very cheap. But there's a company a lot of people like, but it's tough on the public.
This is a different one, though, because Twitter and Facebook are scandals. Snap, they got the Kraken out there, right? TikTok, which is just killing everything. As it moves through the countryside, it's crushing one village after another.
Yes.
Long term, TikTok seems to be unstoppable right now.
I mean, the only pushback I would give there is I would never use the term long term with social networking.
Especially a kid's social network, because they could decide tomorrow morning.
Exactly.
But for the short term, TikTok is doing a lot of damage out there.
It really is. I mean, and I can tell you, having teens, I mean, TikTok is the go-to place for social networking, social interaction. It stuns me, but young people say that TikTok is now even where they get their news. And it's just
that gives us hope for the future, doesn't it?
I mean, again, you can't speak of the long-term future with any of these companies, but right now TikTok has hit on the magical combination, which is letting users generate content for other users. TikTok doesn't have to Netflix this thing and pay for content. It just exists and pulls in the ad revenue. It's so interesting to see how this company has stayed away from the public markets. It's still controversial because it's Chinese owned, how much of that is being run by Americans. And the whole thing is fascinating, but it is just a juggernaut. I think TikTok, and we've talked about this before, is even more responsible for the decline in Netflix shares than Apple Plus or Disney or Peacock or any of the others. I think the young people right now are just tuning into themselves, and that's what they want to see.
And I also think it's TikTok is one of those places that they don't have to worry about adults moving in like Facebook, because you take one look at TikTok and just the sheer chaos and the weird content and all that. And you just, as an adult, you just go, yeah, I think I'll visit that again next year.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you,
grandma's not moving on to TikTok anytime soon and doing videos of herself,
Right. I mean, it is really, really focused on the young people. They are controlling it. I can tell you firsthand, newsrooms around the country are thinking, how do we get on TikTok? And it's a tough thing to break into because, like you say, there's a certain chaos. There's a very short-term attention span, as opposed to a business model that is, hey, give this some thoughtful time to think about and digest. That's not what's happening on TikTok.
No thoughtful time on TikTok. Okay, so let's talk about the increasing wreckage of the economy right now and tech stocks. I sense the penumbra. We're starting to feel the larger impact of this. I noticed some houses in my neighborhood that went up for sale that were selling, before lunch at extraordinary prices. Houses listed $2 million selling for 2.8, overnight. And now all of a sudden the for sales signs are going up, and they're not moving as fast. And
right.
Real estate people seem to be really starting to flog it. I'm getting multiple flyers every day around here.
Right. I mean, well, you were right to bring up the overall economy, because as interest rates go up, it's starting to affect mortgage rates. And mortgage rates, granted, they're not what our parents paid back in the late 70s and 80s at like 18, 19%. But still, when they creep to 5% and higher, and especially here in Silicon Valley, when you're talking about these, $2.5 million homes, all of a sudden the buy-in, the down payment becomes super intimidating, not to mention the monthly mortgage rate that these people are expected to pay to own a home. And so you have more homes, and this is interesting, more homes coming on the market as people get less weirded out about people walking through their houses, more homes on the market, but prices are going up and fewer homes are selling. So now, for the first time in a while, you're seeing some inventory out there that's not just, moving and selling by that afternoon, because buyers are understandably hesitant about jumping into this market that is getting more expensive because of the current economic climate.
And I think more houses are going on the market right now because couples are looking at their vulnerability. They've got huge payments dependent upon both of them working. And now they're starting to get kind of vibes that maybe at their company, there could be a layoff coming up, that sort of thing. And you don't want to be stuck with, one job and a gigantic house payment. And you're paying gigantic house payments right now if you just bought a house in the last 2 years.
Exactly. And it's not just layoffs, it's the decline in the value of their stock options. Yes. As you know, here in Silicon Valley, a lot of people, I would say a lot of people, maybe not the majority, but I wouldn't be surprised, are buying houses with stock options. And if you're seeing the stock prices go so far dramatically lower quickly, that puts the fear of you saying, wait a minute, all of a sudden, when I add up my option worth, it's not enough to put 20% down on a $2 million house. And so, you're seeing people step back and say, I just don't have that money right now because, job or no, my stock option value is all of a sudden much lower than it was.
Yeah, and people every day sit there and look at their option, and they go on the look at the stock listing, they do the multiplication, they go, okay, we're still good. Now I think they're starting to really think, well, maybe we're not that good. Maybe the stock isn't going to come back that fast. And when you got economists saying this could go, the inflation go on for a long time, people forget, youngster, that during the last, the 70s recession, the numbers went up, 5-6%. But then what happened was the only way that you can get out of stagflation is you got to pull that trigger on interest rates to slow everything down. And that's when it suddenly jumped from 6%, 8% to 18%. So that could still be in our future out there. Everyone's being optimistic. It's probably not going to happen. I think Morgan Stanley or one of those said 35% chance of a recession. Well, I have no idea where they got that number. I suspect they just picked it out of a hat how they feel today. But, we're only a few weeks here from finding out if we're actually officially in an economic recession.
I agree. And
a psychological effect on people.
Right. Everything you said is true, young or not. And one of the ways to track that is what's going on here in Silicon Valley. You're seeing fewer speculative investments. You're seeing the prices of things like crypto drop. You're seeing way, way fewer SPACs. And that's investors sort of sobering up from that hangover and saying, we're not seeing the returns on these risky speculative investments. And that's sort of the first thing to dial back. And also, people are not spending millions of dollars on houses as much as they were even a few weeks ago. So I think we're starting to see some of these telltale signs of people getting nervous. And that's when everything slows down here.
Well, I think when you walk in your local supermarket and shelves are empty, that's enough to make you nervous right there.
That's a different kind of nervousness, but yes, I agree.
Okay. Mark Zuckerberg. It seems like the only time we hear about Mark now is there's another scandal or another problem. So he's getting sued by the Washington D.C. Attorney General. He's suing Zuckerberg for claiming he was personally involved in the Cambridge Analytica data breach. They use Facebook data, right?
Right. Well, they used the data we were giving Facebook. Yes.
Yes, they took the data we had in Facebook and Facebook they got from there.
Right. And some people agreed, but others.
Is there any legs on this? I mean,
there might be. Remember, privacy is a big issue right now. Cambridge Analytica was a huge scandal. And even to get back to the first thing you said, we don't hear about Zuckerberg as much. That is a conscious effort by Facebook and its marketing team to sort of move Zuckerberg to, hey, he's our scientist guy now, not the front man, because he just hasn't been a good front man for Facebook. And but these lawsuits, I don't know how much they have in terms of legs, but it's yet another damaging thing to bring up. And this is saying something, one of Facebook's biggest scandals in recent memory, Cambridge Analytica. And I think the DC Attorney General is sort of putting out that trial balloon to see if other states will jump on. Right now, there's a lot happening in the news, both politically and otherwise, economically. So I don't know if that will, be met with as much appetite, but there are a lot of AGs out there that are concerned about the privacy of their citizens. And once again, we're heading into an election cycle and Facebook is under a lot of scrutiny.
It just goes to show your PR department can't hide you completely. I think for a while now, Zuckerberg is going to be a target. Part of it is those Zuckerbucks. I mean, I think there's a political thing. I think the conservative side of Congress is, really upset about the money he threw out there in the election. So they're not going to be giving him any breaks either. And they may be behind this as well. I mean, we're watching both sides of the aisle taking shots at companies like Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg's becoming the whole face of the social network industry now that Dorsey's gone and Elon isn't quite in yet.
Right. And I would argue he wasn't a terrific face for the industry or for Facebook. And there's got to be damage control there. Facebook has lost half its market value in the last year. And, it can only be propped up so much by the likes of Instagram and WhatsApp. Given that, it changes its name to Meta, it's trying to do this whole metaverse thing that people don't understand and are not jumping into. And by the way, is another significant privacy risk. And, I don't expect and wouldn't, advise Facebook to just, hey, take some time off and just relax, because companies don't do that. And I know that. But everything it jumps into, it seems, is fraught with controversy and problems. And it just hasn't figured a way out of that.
When's their annual shareholders meeting?
They just had it a couple of days ago.
No riots, no mutiny. I mean, everybody's still 100% behind a company that's lost half of its stock value.
No, absolutely not. No riots and no mutiny, but no, not 100%. There were lots of comments and complaints. And, I mean, if you're a shareholder in the long term, you're still doing well. But if you're a shareholder in the last year, you've watched your value crumble, and your head guy is still getting sued for things that happened years ago. So no, it's not a good time. And what if you don't buy into the metaverse or the Oculus? I mean, there are reasons right now where people who are still in it, investor wise, for the long term, have to take a leap of faith, and they're leaping without their legs because they get cut off in the metaverse. So it's a fraught time for Facebook right now.
Well, I think we'll be able to tell if something big is going to happen if we see. Keep your eye on Zuckerberg. If he suddenly grows a ponytail or a goatee,
there you go.
He looks like Spock in the other universe. Then we'll know that he's about to make a major change in his life.
Right, he'll go on those meditation retreats like Dorsey.
You like that loop back to Dorsey? Yeah, I think Elon's the next one, or it could be Elon. Okay, so we have a couple items on Elon this week. We have to always have an Elon item, but he insists upon it. Okay, one thing is he has so much free time and so few worries that he now has time to contemplate and worry about population declines in Japan, South Korea, Italy, and Hong Kong.
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem with all of this, whether it's Tesla or the Twitter buyout, is he just can't stay off Twitter. He can't stop. And I imagine the advisors around him are having the similar, pulling their hair out as Donald Trump's advisors did about Twitter.
Especially at Tesla.
Right. Oh my gosh. And he just can't stay off. I just can't figure it out. I mean, he taunts the SEC, which, given that he runs public companies, is a terrible idea. He has called people, who are heroes for rescuing children, pedophiles. Again, what was he thinking? And it's this rolling snowball of bad decisions. And why say everything? I can't figure it out. I communicate for a living, and I just cringe when I see how much and the content that he puts out there and the blowback. I think he enjoys it.
Nobody can constrain him.
Right. And I think he enjoys it. And he's had financially a disastrous week.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. He's still the richest man in the world. But if you're a Tesla shareholder over the last few weeks and you're not the richest person in the world, you're saying, maybe I no longer have enough for that down payment. Hey, thanks, Elon, for going online and creating more controversy and damaging my value. And that's, I think, what a lot of people are saying in frustration right now.
But can any board, can Tesla board, any of them do a Steve Jobs with them and say, you're out of control, you're distracted from running this company, you become a burden as opposed to an advantage, and say it's time to become chairman emeritus of Tesla or something like that?
I mean, the short answer is yes, they can, but would they? And is he surrounding himself with yes men?
Sycophants? Huh. Interesting.
I don't know. I mean, there's no sense in any of this, except, you can't argue with the successful part of what he's done. But you now have an entire Twitter thread of people coming on saying he's courting conservatives, but who buys EVs? Liberals. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think, why not buy an EV and not pollute no matter what political party you are? But there is a point to that. And if people who are looking at Tesla are saying, I don't like this guy's politics, I'm going to look elsewhere. And by the way, there are now other places to look for EVs. That damages Tesla's bottom line. Why? Because the head guy had to tweet out strange things, and
which is why CEOs traditionally stayed out of politics.
Right. I mean, you've got to hire somebody to just rein in your CEO.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the history of Silicon Valley is companies firing founders. He's got kind of an Al Shugart vibe around him right now that you don't know what the next thing he's going to say is. I mean, even TJ knew enough to rein it in. I'm almost getting an Al Capone vibe here, which is, you get so big and so powerful that United States government decides to take you down, because you're becoming an obstacle. You're becoming a threat in some way. I don't think Elon's a threat to the federal government, but I think if these major companies, if he gets Twitter to start swinging wildly and becoming controversial because of his remarks, there's going to be a problem. And case in point, we've now seen the first sexual assault accusation against him. I don't know if knowing Elon, I doesn't seem likely, but it happens to other guys. It doesn't seem likely with it, So this woman on one of his private plane, a stewardess, I guess, said that, I won't go into the sort of details, but powerful people that get out there in the public eye, it seems like there's always one of these waiting in the wings. It might be an actual true story. It might be enemies who have, putting someone out there. And, if the case doesn't go anywhere, she might disappear, as we've seen before after the accusations made.
But it's also a history of powerful men who can't keep it to themselves. And, it does damage to CEOs. It does damage to, obviously, his reputation and the reputation of others. And we've seen it time and time again where powerful men think they have carte blanche to do what they want. Right. And because it's Elon, it's a little extra sorted, a little strange. I mean, he offered her a horse. Come on. I mean, that's almost a unique Elon thing that makes me say, maybe. Yeah, exactly. Maybe. He's a cocky guy who's arrogant. And so, you read this and you cringe, not just because there was a horse offer involved, but just because, again, a powerful guy who says, I'm going to do what I want and take advantage of others. And that's damaging to everything we've just talked about. And now you have this cringe factor of Twitter people, Tesla owners, everybody who's saying, hey, our guy might be a creep. And nobody might be.
And then to play devil's advocate, you read about famous people, folks come out of the woodwork and accuse them, figuring they can get a settlement. So these guys are writing checks, and now they have a paper trail of writing checks to women.
Right.
And so and there's almost no way, unless you fully adjudicate it with a lot of testimony and everything else, to figure out if it's true or not. Because you can make a pretty good case that it looks true.
Sure. Or
it looks like just another, con person trying to get money out of a rich person by getting a buy-off. It's hard to know these things, and you hesitate to render judgment until you hear more.
I mean, I think it's easy to render judgment. He's an arrogant guy who has too much power and too much money, and he's using it. Clearly, he doesn't have self-control over what he's saying, allegedly over what he's doing. And, we see this time and time again. And
we'll see. I mean, but I've seen him in action, like around a lot of pretty college girls at Oxford University. He didn't even seem to notice, and yet, he's got just, 2 wives now so far. It's hard to keep up. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't know. But once again, Elon's going to be in the news one way or another.
Right.
Okay, before we run out of time, real quick, this is from Jordan. He noticed that Microsoft is not stealthily, but pretty quietly making its move into the Android world. You notice that there's Windows now for Android 12.1. Microsoft's pretty cagey right there.
Right, and I think Jordan's right. This is a big potential move for Microsoft because Android is still selling a gazillion phones. It's sort of the Android versus Apple world. Apple is closed off. Android, though, is still open and with a lot of security concerns. And I think Microsoft can potentially make some inroads here, not just because they want Windows everywhere, but also maybe to put some Android users at ease that they can use this platform and download these apps more safely. That would be a win for everybody. But remember, there was a day not that long ago when Microsoft was working with Apple. But now I think it's better target, if you will, is going to be Android, and it'll be interesting to see if Microsoft can make some inroads there to just give it perhaps a stronger, safer platform.
Yeah, and Microsoft Windows, most venerable, most popular operating system in history. I mean, it's not the greatest, but
no, I was going to say it also may bring more bugs to the Android system, and I don't know that anybody wants that. Yeah.
But I think I think the larger audience may feel safer, being able to port their Windows over and that sort of thing. Not techies like in the Valley, but out there in the Midwest, people that are still using AOL for mail.
I don't know anybody that does that, do I?
Right. I keep it just because I'm a man of the people. I keep it as an archival, historical,
sure you do,
collectible on my computer. I'm going to sell an NFT one of these days. Okay, another one. Andreessen Horowitz. Mark has made his move. He's raising $4.5 billion for a crypto fund. That sounds like a guy, never underestimate Mark Andreessen. I think he's the smartest guy I know. And if he's going into crypto, he's bargain hunting. He thinks they're going to get flattened so bad in this recession, he's going to be able to pick this stuff up for a song.
The love of crypto, I've decided, will no longer ever surprise me. And Andreessen Horowitz has got a lot of money. I mean, look, how committed is this guy to crypto? A16Z, which is Andreessen Horowitz, their crypto fund, is backing, I believe, to the tune of $70 million. The Newmans, Adam and Rebecca Newman, who we remember from WeWork fame, they are raising money for, of course, a crypto fund.
Oh, sure, of course.
Andreessen Horowitz is in, which means the Newmans are back with Silicon Valley money in a crypto fund. That sentence alone defines anything you need to know about.
Who wouldn't go into a cryptocurrency that was run by the people that gave us WeWork?
Why not? Why not? I mean, goodness gracious, he just couldn't take the money and leave.
I usually end this on a funny note or a positive note, but not this week. Real quick, the Stellantis CEO, that's a company that's is into EV. Their CEO has warned that there's going to be a shortage of EV batteries by 2024-25, followed by a lack of raw materials for the vehicles by 2027 or 2028. There's something to look forward to. So you can't get gas for your car. You're not going to be able to get batteries or raw materials for your electric vehicle. Grove wrote to me and said, great, gas prices high, battery shortages, time to buy a bicycle. We're back to 1895.
I think he's right. Buy a bicycle, get the horses and wagons ready, because the price of gas will drop eventually. But look, if we can't get what we need supply-wise to, get cars, not to mention EVs, we're in trouble. And that's going to be something that, again, I think we're going to look to Silicon Valley and innovation and say, hey, get us out of this problem, because it's a big problem. But, all of a sudden, any car you have that's any age is looking like, am I going to be able to replace this? And yeah.
Who would imagine if you're talking to somebody in 1900 and they said, what do you think is the future of horseless carriages? And you replied, horse-drawn carriages 120 years from now.
And that is why Elon Musk is offering horses, because we're all going to need them.
There we go, man. We are bringing everything around today. Okay, that's it for now, folks. You can find us on the Silicon Valley Business Journal homepage, as well as on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, LinkedIn, and as always, check out our YouTube. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.